thank you very much for coming along. 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday afternoon is always a tough gig for anyone with families, responsibilities and all the things that we live in our busy lives. Look, I'm going to spend about 15, maybe 20 minutes just sort of running through a few slides and a few thoughts for you. Part of the idea is, well, introduce you to BetterCells, what we're doing as a company, then how that's relevant to you and your life, and then more importantly, in my view at least anyway, Rona and Marion to have a chat and sort of share some of their knowledge, which is, in my experience, phenomenal knowledge, what these people have learned and know and practice. 2 years ago, I had no idea that this knowledge and science existed, and I've been very fortunate to spend a lot of time with Marion, Rona, Tom, Sol, George a little bit, and just learned so much from them about what we can do, and also I guess what we're not doing quite so well in terms of our health in the modern world. So look, just to give you a sort of frame as to the magnitude of this situation and problem and opportunity, which go hand in hand. It's, when I put up there on the slides, a $2.2 trillion US healthcare crisis. That's probably actually an understatement, because US government health spends about $3.3 trillion in total, but the vast majority of it is on chronic illness or lifestyle illness, and I'll talk a bit more about that as we go through. Sorry, to move that.
The pointer.
There's a button.
Turn it on. You need to turn it on at the side.
It's on. There we go. Alright, so with BetterCells, very simply, it's really about finding out what's going on inside your body. One of the things which I had no idea about for the first 51 years of my life is I've been effectively driving blind, making decisions, health decisions, making food decisions, drink decisions. Ironically, whether I drink out of a plastic cup or whether I drink out of a tin cup or whether I drink out of a glass or a ceramic cup. What I eat, what sort of food is it, processed, not processed, whole food, organic, etc., etc. We've got so many choices every day. It starts when you wake up, and it's just ongoing. So with BetterCells, we're developing an online platform so that people can access the knowledge and expertise that a few people are here to share with us tonight. And their knowledge and expertise, I can assure you, is in high demand. So we're setting up this online environment so you can tap into it on your mobile phone or a laptop or anywhere with a PC, and you can start this journey of getting better health and making better choices. And it's really about empowering yourself with information. Once you've got information, okay, you know which way you're going. You know also that there's things that work against you, self-defeating behaviours. Okay, what are they? I've got plenty of them. Most of us do. But at least if I'm aware of the consequences, I can start to minimise, reduce and modify my behaviour, which is what I have been slowly doing over the last few years. One of the things with what we're doing, of course, with the platform, taking it into an app sort of environment on your mobile phone, because a mobile phone, especially in the younger generation, the new generation if you like, man's best friend is now a mobile phone. Dog's been replaced, husbands, wives sort of coming second or third place after the mobile phone. If you look at some of the X-Gens and what's going on, I've got 2 teenage kids and they'll just sit there texting to each other from both ends of the lounge. That's the way these guys communicate. We might disagree with that, but that's the reality of it. So the mobile phone itself is a very powerful device in its own right, from a social media point of view and a communications point of view. So what we're doing is putting the two together to help people modify their understanding behaviour. So in terms of regular public, the people who are eating and drinking things which we've grown up with but aren't necessarily good for us, it's really about giving global access to expertise and assistance. Because we're an online platform, we actually just switched on, I think, New Zealand dollar last week and tested that, and we're just doing US dollar next week. So as we move forward, we'll be looking to onboard practitioners from the US, Canada, the UK, Europe, etc. So that you might not be able to get to see a practitioner during the day, working busy, 8 to 7 schedule or whatever. Okay, or at home at night at 8 o'clock you can talk to someone in London easily enough, or if you get up early, talk to someone in New York City, because it's an online platform, share your information with them. Certainly for Australians, we have a lot of remote people and remote expertise. We live in Perth, great 2 million people, but there's 23 million people over the other side of the country. That's where a lot of their capabilities and knowledge are. So again, getting online, you can talk to someone for 5 or 10 minutes and really get the advice you need when you need it. We've set it up so it's a pay per minute type system as well. I'm I think most of us would have been through the experience of waiting weeks and weeks to talk to a practitioner or someone. You get there, you've had to cancel it, delay it, get through traffic, it might take half an hour. You get there, it's a 10-minute consult, you wait half an hour in the practice or in the reception. And so basically you spent 3 or 4 weeks just to get a 10-minute piece of information. So our idea is basically putting that into your pocket, into your laptop, into your PC. You can get that expertise and knowledge much more quickly. You've got a question or problem, solve it more quickly. So it's really about convenience and access. And then from a practitioner's point of view, there's a few benefits to practitioners as well. You can certainly talk to a number of the people that are here with us tonight. But my very simplistic analysis is, from what I've seen of practitioners, it's a pretty tough gig. You get educated. First thing that you have to do is go and rent a premise. For those of us who've rented offices, it's not a pleasant experience. And quite often you've got to lease it for 5 years and the number's very large. And so a lot of the money that you earn is actually just going to pay the rent. Then you need a receptionist, you need staff, you need insurance, you need everything else, etc., etc. So in a sense, you can also replicate that office experience just on a laptop and a mobile phone and be anywhere that you like. So that's sort of it in a simplistic sense. So there's many problems, and a good business actually solves problems. So that's what we're doing. We're actually identifying problems and issues, and we're building around to solve those. So I won't take you through those one by one, but I think you get the gist. Let's just talk a little bit more about this chronic illness market that I've touched on. Some interesting stats, which I found completely fascinating. In the USA with Haythorpe MD, they claim 26,000 practitioners in their database and their data set. And in Australia, we have a trade organisation or professional organisation referred to as A5M, which I never heard of until a year and a half ago. And there's 6,000 functional practitioners there. And it's interesting because even with those numbers, I would have thought I would have heard of this body of knowledge and expertise well before 2 years ago. It's a large market, as I've touched on, and this is sort of more of an investor type commentary here. But you're looking at 5 to 9% per annum growth in chronic illness and demand in services. So that's why I'm very fortunate to have some of the people in the industry here with us tonight, because they are very busy pretty much all the time. So we're trying to bridge the gap. Functional medicine, very simplistically, to define it or distinguish it, this is one of a number of definitions I've seen. Functional medicine looks for things that shouldn't be there, and you then go about removing them, and looks for things that are missing that should be there, and you add them in. And what are chronic illnesses? Just to be clear, because again everyone's got a different understanding that I've talked to anyway, but it pretty much catches on just about everything that we talk about. Parkinson's, arthritis, autoimmune diseases, it's a broad category. Autistic spectrum, again, very broad. Epilepsy, celiac, multiple sclerosis, asthma, cystic fibrosis, etc., etc. So most of us in our families in Australia and the US now have someone that's been touched by at least one of those conditions. Another sort of way of looking at things a bit differently. Every year, of course, in Australia we celebrate Anzac Day, and what a terrible tragedy that was, Gallipoli. But just to draw comparison and contrast, I checked the stats, and out of the entire Gallipoli campaign, 17% of Australian servicemen who attended the Gallipoli campaign were actually fatalities. When we actually turn the card over and look at what's happening today in our modern society, we're looking at something closer to 95% death rate due to chronic illness, and that's current stats, and the current trend is growing rapidly. So it's a very sobering thought to sort of sit and think, well, if you look around and see 20 people sitting around you today, which is the one person who's actually going to get to die of old age, because the other 19 statistically aren't going to be there. Well, the good news is I think we're working on our health, or at least we're about to start working on our health, so we're going to improve that stat. But it's pretty horrendous. 95% mortality rate. What's even more concerning to me is we actually accept it. You know, I haven't heard anyone complain about, oh my God, 95% of us are dying because of what we eat and drink. But every Anzac Day I hear about, oh my God, you know, what a terrible thing it was in World War I. Anyway, contrast. Okay, why? What's going on? How could this be? Well, I love this, the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. It's produced by the Environmental Work Group out of the US. They publish it once every 6 or 12 months. It's a very simple list. The Dirty Dozen, it's referring to food where there's more chemicals put on it. So apples, peaches, strawberries, spinach, those things have a very high concentration of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides used on the food crop. And yes, we can wash it and do our very best with it. I pretty much religiously peel everything now. But the Clean 15, so for me anyway, my personal choice is on the Dirty Dozen, I try and go organic only if I can. And on the Clean 15, I'm a bit more relaxed when I'm at Coles or Woolies or the IGA. But the scary number there is 141 million chemicals used now on the Global Chemical Register. It's phenomenal. I've seen a couple of different estimates, including up to 2,500 chemicals per annum being approved by the US government, which if you back calculate that, it works out to a new chemical every 1.5 or 2 hours. So we have a society which we're very aware of obesity and diabetes, and most of us count calories or talk about calories. It's almost inevitable in our society, which is good. I mean, we need to be very conscious and aware of just how much sugar we're taking, of course, which most of us are. But what I find in conversations, very few of us are conscious as to how many chemicals we're taking each day. And so by the time the average Australian's done the average breakfast, there's something like 50 chemicals have gone in. And I challenge anyone to identify what those chemicals are. So with BetterCells, it's really what we're building and putting together is, when you think about it, all the data that we hold is secure. We're using Azure, Microsoft platform, which is one of the world's best in terms of securing data on the cloud. That's where we store individual files, including my personal data. And the sort of information that we're encouraging people to ask, what is my microbiome status? Well, the first question is, what is microbiome? For many people, food and chemical sensitivities. Well, again, why would I want to get that done? Well, many of us, we all have our unique DNA, we all have our unique allergies, our unique reactions to different foods and substances. And when we react, that means your white blood cell goes up, your autoimmune system switches on. You keep switching on your autoimmune system for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's not good. The immune system's designed to switch on for a week or two, deal with the disease, and then switch off and sort of take a break. So microbiome foods, organic acids levels, actually Rona's a great fan of that one, I won't go into that any further. DNA, metals and minerals, well that's actually what Marion's brought along, and Tom and Sol I think have got a machine here as well for people to get scanned. And there's many other toxins and poisons that you can have a look at. And when you put all this together, quite a lot of us have issues where our hormones are out of whack, whether it's cortisol or estrogen, testosterone, etc. And okay, how do you get those back into whack? How do you get them back working as they were supposed to be originally? And family history. There's a lot of family history input through the DNA that we inherit, because it's not just us and our generation. Our parents also worked in environments that weren't necessarily clean or healthy in the last 50, 100, 150 years. And I don't know, maybe Sol, you might be happy to share a few minutes later on just in what you've seen in some of the family history with some of the testing that you've done at Captain Sterling down in Netherlands. So BetterCells part of it, and Rona, number 2 there. Very pleased that you're here. We have some other people on our scientific panel, and these are the people that certainly I talk to a lot, whether it's email or phone or whatever, where we're filtering a lot of the information that's available. If you go Dr. Google, I mean there's endless amounts of information. Wikipedia, same thing, massive amounts of information. But it's really about filtering out what's actually reasonably reliable and what's cost effective in terms of what you can do. So that's really our focus. We've got a small board of directors and founding shareholders, so we're a private, we're about to be a public unlisted company shortly. We've just changed the status. A shareholder list there, so we did a round of finance last year, which is what kicked it off, which has allowed us to build the platform that we've now got today. In terms of business, we basically charge a small fee on top, so for clients to register it's for free, for practitioners to register it's for free. We just put a service charge on top. It's a fairly simple model. In terms of the future, we're very, very keen to get this data set built over time as we grow our business, and we think that this will be a phenomenal data set for human health and human health management moving forwards over the next 50 years. I just want to spend a moment on microbiome. Quickly, hands up, who's never heard of microbiome or has almost zero idea? Okay, there's a few people. Zero. That's okay. It's interesting. Sorry. microbiome's actually catching a lot of press and media attention, or more and more press and media attention just in the last 12 months, and a lot more research work's being done. It's a fascinating area of science. When I went to university, we were taught there was one kind of bug in your gut. It's called E. coli or Escherichia coli. And with E. coli, well, actually there's a few varieties. There's Delhi belly, there's Montezuma's revenge in Mexico, there's barley belly if you go to Indonesia, and then it's just salmonella or some other bug that you get in your gut if you eat something bad in Australia. So when I went to university, we had 5 bugs in our gut. Last research I saw, there's about 43,000 species of bugs identified in our gut. And rather than thinking of them as bugs, you actually should think of it as microfauna and microflora. It's almost like a rainforest of microbes living in our gut, and we actually need them, and we need the full diversity. And out of that, probably 85% maybe, Rona, are good. And, Marion, would that be about right? And 15 are kind of the potentially nasty ones, but the good ones keep the nasty ones in check. So these are microscopic organisms, animals and plants and fungus basically living in our guts. And they actually metabolise the food, produce metabolites, which then goes through our gut wall, and that produces nutrients and the stuff that we need for our bodies to function. So then the question arises, okay, hands up who's had amoxicillin or an antibiotic? Yep, okay. How many people took probiotics after their amoxicillin or antibiotic? No, a few. And how many switched to prebiotic foods as part of that? Anyway, very good. It's kind of a loaded question, this. But the reason why I'm asking those questions is because in all of my conversations since I started learning about this, I've sort of been testing my family and annoying them like fury and asking questions, what do you know about this and what do you think about that? And what I found is 98% of people don't know. And I have been one of those too until recently. And then it's like, okay, well, so what? There's all these bugs and whatever. What's that mean for me? Well, now there's a lot of work being shown where you can actually rebalance your microbiome and you can sort out all sorts of medical problems and issues. Because if that population gets hit by pesticides, herbicides, fungicides or antibiotics either every day or every year, you can lose that diversity for a year or 2 or 3, which means then if you have another antibiotic round in 2 years or 3 years' time, and so on and so forth it goes. So massive amount of work going into the microbiome, and there's going to be some pretty exciting stuff come out of that science. The reason why I'm spending a bit of time on this is because I think this is just another good example of a new field of science which is really just going to bubble up in terms of its utility for us. And what it means for us is we can actually manage our health much better than we could. And there is a direct correlation between microbiome and your gut health and your brain and your mental health. And it really is literally connected. If the gut's not performing well and the microbiome's been damaged, it's not good for your brain. Supplements. Big market in the US, and globally it's about $100 billion a year market. I like this chart more from, again, a bit of an investor sort of theme here, I guess. But this is the only chart I've ever seen where you cannot see the global financial crisis or the GFC. Basically 2008, 2009, supplements market, supplements demand grew. Doesn't matter the fact that the world was collapsing and the US auto industry went virtually bankrupt or into administration. Didn't matter the airline industry went into administration virtually in the US and in other parts of the world. Didn't matter the banking crisis, the housing crisis, everything else. People are still self-supplementing. So what this tells me is there's a degree of awareness of what we're talking about, and we're searching, everyone's searching for something, vitamin B's or vitamin C, or take multivitamins or whatever it is. Take protein powders or whatever your flavour is that you've been exposed to. But the interesting thing is the majority of this is, again, it's blind consumption. It's not actually based on let's get the testing the data and then figure out what you truly are going to benefit from. And it's just growing. It's growing because we're looking for answers, is the take home for me. So in terms of growth plan, we're a company, we set up this company or started building this company about 1.5 years ago. I've got to know some of the people here tonight through that building. We're early stage, but it's looking very promising and very exciting for the future. One of the other, I'll sort of close on this slide, but one of the other issues that's come about is, well, a lot of my friends and colleagues, well, I don't really want to get tested because, I don't want to know the bad news. And it's like, well, actually, if you're operating okay, and you're working and living and functioning in a family or a social environment or whatever, well, the good news is you're actually still operating okay. The bad news is actually when something happens in a year or 10 years or 20 years time and suddenly things aren't functioning okay. That's actually my test results there on the left, actually from the oligo scan, which I got done about a year ago. Sorry, no, I got that done with, Marion, they're the results that I did with you. It's like, well, your iodine's really low, Andrew, so that's not good. Well, okay, that doesn't sound good. And my selenium's really low, so, well, okay, well, your mercury's really high because basically your selenium and your iodine are low and you've got to do this and your phosphate's low, so you need to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. So I'm actually doing a lot of that sort of stuff, and I'm slowly correcting that. Actually, my selenium, the first result, that was also critically low red. So that's a sort of a screenshot of the app. And then the stuff on the right-hand side is actually the stuff that Tom and Sol supplied me with, some massacre for the acidity, some iodine, some selenium, and some magnesium and phosphate. It's kind of can be as simple as that. And you know, the scan there costs $100 or whatever it did, and the other stuff there costs $100. And who knows, but you know, that actually might save me from getting dementia or Alzheimer's, because I did see my grandmother get Alzheimer's. And you know, she was one of those people who didn't know what her name was or where she lived. And then I saw with my father, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's actually originally. I was like, oh, okay, well, Parkinson's not good, yeah, we know a bit about that. What can we do? Oh, well, there's really not much you can do about it. What I didn't know, or no one told me at the time, was that actually it then progressed on to Lewy body dementia, which was a whole new can of worms. So the first thing, I actually don't know whether Dad was ever aware of him having Lewy body dementia. It's a bizarre condition, and I don't know if any of you have ever been through that, but it's as bad on the family, maybe even worse on the family than it is on the actual individual sufferer. And you know, it's a form of mental illness and mental, neurological deterioration. And again, that's connected to the gut, and it's again connected to the nutrients available and the things that are not available. And what's mercury famous for? Mad Hatter's disease. What's Mad Hatter's disease? Well, the felt hat makers playing with mercury would go mad. Where do they end up at? A place called Bedlam. What do we know Bedlam as? Well, there actually was legitimately a mental institute in the UK built, which was pretty well chock-a-block full of Mad Hatters. And then, of course, mercury kills you. So after it's driven you nuts a little bit. So that's just a piece of history and a piece of stuff. But to me, the opportunity to be able to do something about this before you wake up in a hospital restrained, not knowing where you are or who you are, is phenomenal. I wish I knew this 5 years ago for obvious reasons, or 10 years ago with my dad. If he knew about this stuff, I'm pretty sure a lot of what happened would not have happened. He just didn't know that eating that and drinking that was not a good idea. So that's it for me. Thanks. I'll just hand over to the proper science department as opposed to the layman's version.